I noticed that. Yeah.
He's
Go
going
on a streak.
he's going for what is it? What are those guys? The skinhead look.
Skinhead.
He went
all
from
do
I
it.
see the tattoo up here.
hippie to skinhead overnight. It's like the most. It's very disturbing.
We should all do that for our next call and just not say anything about it at all. Just go about our normal thing, just all with our head shaved. Raise a lot of questions.
Martin's already halfway there. You just need to take a razor to it.
Sometime this month.
I'm not
Luke.
far.
It's getting pretty crowded in here.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Luke still has his face like, what the fuck is going on? What planet is this? Oh, you can actually. I was just testing if you could hear me.
Okay, you can switch to the gallery view to see everybody.
We all want to know what planet this is.
Clown planet.
Recognize it. Stop the world. I want to get off. All right. So I love our new bigger team. Oh, who are we missing? Anybody? Other than Rob, right? Rob and Moritz. All right, Francis. I finally managed to get a call with our friend.
Okay, excellent.
Hire UA this morning. That's why I'm late. I just got off the call. We had a lot of fun. They have about 100 people. They're little, right? Their deal makes sense. I'd have to get funding approved, so to speak, from our funding source. He'd like you to send him the what's this?
With the what?
Document, whatever that the job.
The RFP.
Yeah,
I thought I sent it to him already. I'll do that now.
I think he said he showed it to the screen on the screen. He may have just forgotten that you sent it to him already.
Okay, I'll send him the link.
It was really fun talking to him.
Is he from Ukraine?
Sorry?
Is he from Ukraine?
He's from New York. I'm sure he's ethnically Slavic. I can tell by looking at him, but I don't. He doesn't have any hair either, so it's like fit into this group, which is pretty good, you know. Jacob, you got plenty of hair, but you're still young, right? You gonna lose it?
Yeah, well, my dad started balding when he was in his early 20s, so we'll see.
Same here.
Yeah, the struggle.
Hey, Gabriel, you got a nice head of hair.
Yeah, it's my family. No one's bald in my family, so I'm pretty safe, I think.
You're good. You're in good shape. And Luke's, it just migrates to his face, so that's all that happens. All right. That was number one. Where's my list here? Thanks for whoever put the Facebook thing together. Thank you. Let's be extremely judicious about what we post there, though.
I only take stuff from Twitter.
Well, I mean, even then, you know, whatever. I'm just doing my duty, right? I don't know.
Yeah, like Martin shared that one like list of applications of law to all the different fields, and I wanted to post it, but I did one of the last ones said something about revolution, and I kind of just cropped that out for Facebook. I was like, oh, just in case, yeah.
Now we had some talk about using the Institute's feed Legis Europa. Is that something the group wants to take on as well, or no?
We should be able to roughly automate that feed, like scheduled posts, something like that. That way the Institute fellows or people who are dealing with the Institute can interact. Use that account to act as the Institute. I don't know who wants to take it on.
Yeah, I'm kind of already steering the Telegram channel and the Facebook, so I can definitely be one of the people, if not the person.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering to be a victim.
Yep. Or do we want to do that on Twitter as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's just the same thing, right?
You might as well just cross-post across. The Institute account on Twitter posts the same thing as the Institute account on Facebook and just copy pasta.
Yep. Yep.
So bias toward the meaningful posts, please. Bias to meaningful posts, like especially the ones with titles.
People are agitated and aggressive enough. We don't need to help them.
Okay. Extra researcher search. And we had touched, I don't know if the vocabulary thing fell off the radar or not. If it fell off the radar, maybe I should put Ian on it. I don't remember who was gonna work on that. Do we have somebody work on the vocabulary?
The terminologies and the definition of terminology.
Yeah,
Tyler, I think in the doc you showed
Yeah,
me yesterday, we do have someone.
Jacob
Not
and
sure
I
if it's the
talked.
right person.
Yeah, Jacob and I talked about it. And he kind of talked about, I guess him and Martin may have been talking about it a little bit. So they might be, I don't know what time or energy or, that, and I can help too, because I'm interested in that. So I can help steer that as well. That's definitely can be on my radar. Or, I know they obviously have a lot better understanding of the work than I do. So maybe we can kind of collaborate, the three of us, if nothing else.
Well, there's a glossary page on the site, so why not just edit that?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what we were talking about. I think that's what Jacob mentioned in particular, the glossary page. I think that's the same thing we're talking about. Yeah.
Was there someone outside this group, Curt, that you mentioned last week or the week before, like Oliver, or there was another name, Ian?
Ian Oliver, has expressed an interest.
Okay.
I don't have I can't comment on whether he would be good at it or not. So I would at least try to include him. If I would recommend we try to include him, and the reason is he's sort of got a pretty good handle on the volume of the content, so I would at least try. I don't want to dictate how this gets done. I'm just saying that I would recommend that this gets straight. I would just like to have a weekly update on how we're doing on that. I think it's a pretty big job, so spreading the work around, even if some people collect terms and other people refine them. I mean, Martin refines everything I do, so that's probably fine.
Is the glossary page, is that editable and commentable by, is there a source control system?
It just requires you have editor permissions, and Martin can give anybody that he wants.
Do we have a like a code review process? If you submit a PR, someone can comment on it, and
well, it saves it like it saves it just like any other diff engine, right? So it saves versions,
okay.
So we can see it. What I would prefer is we somehow mark those ones that we've done, so that we can review the ones that are done. I mean, there's quite a bit of stuff up there actually, and there's quite a bit of stuff. There's quite a bit of stuff in the content of the work we're using that uses a very precise definition, like
So
commonality and concurrency are the ones that are in my head these days.
okay, so what you're saying is we need some kind of work tracking system. And when someone makes a change to the glossary page, does it take effect immediately, or does it go through a PR submit process, review submit process?
Here's how I would recommend, because I want to make it as easy as possible with a few steps. I would recommend that we either move a newly defined term to the top, or in other words, we sort the things by newly defined or not, so that we can always work on what's newly defined. Or that we have two pages, one that's the working copy and the old copy, and one's the new, and we're adding things to the new one. And we can sort of go through the definitions and check them every week for the staff meeting.
There is another way, which is just start a Google Doc or something, right? Add the definition on there and then comment on it, modify it until we're happy with it, and then we publish it.
We get the same thing in WordPress, really. We get the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, we may have some supplemental documents, and once we get it on the site, like you said, there's ways to sort it and stuff. So yeah, we'll figure it out.
And apparently not even accessible now. For some
Sorry, what?
reason.
Apparently,
The page, it's apparently not even accessible.
Oh,
I'm sure wearing there.
that's gotta be something I did on my accident. It's a glossary.
I recall fixing something like that before. It's something about page being placed in the documentation but not being a document, and then it can be opened.
Yeah, I got a 4-4.
We have a glossary, we have a private glossary, we have another private glossary. We have a
We got like, yeah, we got
We have an
multiple.
online learning glossary. Holy shit.
We need a glossary of glossaries.
Well, that one is just a holding spot. That one looks pretty good.
Oh, there we go. The one under learn. Yeah, yeah, the one under learn 404s. That's the old material URL.
Yeah, so the 404 is under the basic concepts. Online learning glossary. Where did this come from? Oh, this is that's a dummy page that comes with a template. So we have this one coming to you in your chat. You have this one. This one. And we have. Where is the fucking glossary? Oh, this is what Martin is saying. It's the wrong kind of page. Is that what you're saying, Martin?
I was saying that when it's placed in the documentation, so in the book, but it's not the type document, I think it can't show them. But you can still find it and edit it.
So this is the one I just posted in the chat. That's the one which is under the top menu. You go to learn and glossary. And I'm getting 4 for all 3 of them.
Well, it's because they're private. They're probably more private.
Okay.
Where's the goddamn? That means you are hiding somewhere.
Should we just delegate this to the folks in the terminology work stream and give them access rights and have them figure this out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, we can spend more time with it after, figure it out if we need to.
Yeah.
We
Martin
don't need
knows
to drain the time
Martin
here.
knows what's wrong. There's basically posts, pages, and documents, right? And so it's in the wrong spot. And it just requires going into the page tree and trying to figure out where it is.
Sounds good.
All right. The hell is that? Interesting. All right. That's all I got for today. What else do I have? Oh, Martin, don't get upset for me mentioning this. So I put on a hissy fit about the quorum. So what I've understood from Brandon and Brad is that you guys are managing that really well, but we've got to, I don't want, if we get kicked off Twitter, it's a really bad thing for us. So we have to be We have to be more cautious than we have been. I'm working on the I'm working on the decorum page, which lists all the talking points. And once we're there, we'll know how to handle it. But basically, we don't need to assert dominance. We just have to explain the balance between things, all right? All right.
We need to plan for that then, if that's truly a vulnerability, because it's going to happen.
I was thinking
Kicked
maybe
off
if
at
I
Facebook
just
and mass.
keep this profile as my own only, and have a separate one associated with the institute. Not sure if that would help.
How do you suppose they're going to target us? I mean, we're not affiliated via any internal mechanism on Twitter. We're affiliated with one another outside of.
I don't think they'll just, what they'll do is they'll try to find what they always do is, I go through it. If I have anything highly conflicting, I go through, I delete it afterwards. Martin probably needs to go through and sanitize his record. But if you're tied to the organization of any way, they'll find a way to tie us together. There's no real escape here.
Make your main accounts, keep your main account associated and more decorum friendly, and then just make an alt account, a semi-anonymous or anonymous alt account, and then just have fun because you may lose it. That's what I do.
Anyway, so what's the
I'm gonna put pressure on the people who actually hate, meaning like the ADL and SPC.
there's
Those
really
people shouldn't be on Twitter.
We don't need to be appealing to the rad boys. They've served their purpose.
To the what boys?
The rad boys, like the people who are antagonistic.
The radicals. Yes, people are agitated and antagonized enough, like I said.
We don't need to even interact with them because they serve their purpose. What was their purpose? To get us far enough. Not what's their only purpose. Right, their only value to us is risk.
Well, they got to show up.
Right. And that they could show up. But what we need to do is work the political. We need to graduate from edgy dweebs to being a movement. And there are enough of us now. And so if we're going to graduate, we have to grow up and graduate with it. If there are people that can't grow up and graduate with us, then we can't have anything to do with them. So, I mean, it's not a complex issue.
We have to make inroads to the game, meaning all the other institutions that work on policy and law and economics and so on, they don't deal with us. They don't deal with us. They ignore us.
Well, that's because we have our own associations.
They also aren't doing their work on Twitter. It's all in person and they're talking to each other. So.
Correct.
We need email. We need someone to reach out on email and make connections between our institute and their fellows so that we can have conversations and move the conversation forward across arenas.
I agree. And I was going to say one thing, if there's any kind of ties to that more edgy, like I think you mentioned inroads, Brandon, like if we still want to have, like, how do you say we can recruit from those people? There's some people in those like edgy radicals who can kind of be tamed a little bit and do want to work to graduate. And so, but again, it needs to be separate. We definitely, this needs to be cleaner and more official. And so that can be a separate thing.
Now, the way we're going to do that, back to our earlier conversations, is we're going to have to get legitimacy through demonstrated competency. We're going to get that through doing a few shows, whatever you want to call them, presentations, recording and publishing them, right? We're going to get that through publishing legal positions on things. We're going to get that through helping activist organizations, right? And so I think we should view, there's a part of social media that we view as socializing and team building. But we have to start looking at social media as marketing. And so if I would like, I have a hard enough time controlling myself. So, because I can wig out like anybody else. But we have to figure out that if we want to make a difference in the world, we can't be just a nicer version of edgelords, right? We have to become a serious movement. And I made a mistake, of course, in history by going down this particular route. So I thought so, but evidence is you can recover from those things. It just takes a couple of years. Well, I don't want to lose a couple of years again. I don't want to lose a couple of years and have to rebrand and restructure, reorganize, right? So I just want to make sure we don't make any more big mistakes. And we understand what, if we want to make Martin fixed it, by the way, the glossary, he just posted that. We need to be acting like what we are trying to be, which is a think tank that is that engages in political activism. And so I'm sorry to emphasize the decorum thing so much, but we've all grown up with social media as a means of partly catharsis, partly education, partly socializing and finding good minds. But you know, if we want to be an activist organization rather than LARPers, we've got to actually behave as one. So, you know, I watched what's his name, Lindsay, make a speech to the European Parliament the other day, and you know, he's got a much easier job positioning it as, you know, to hit the level as a religion than we do as a science. And so there's always going to be more resistance to what we do. But that's only a resistance to what we do until the prior level of messaging is sufficient to identify the problem correctly. In other words, we have to think about what Lindsay's doing as what the neo-reactionaries did for us. Does that make sense? The neo-reactionaries laid the ground for the alt-right and the conservative movement, and ours. I mean, my stuff was considered part of that world. And so we have to look at Lindsay doing the same thing, but he's doing it for a broader audience instead of a narrower audience. He's bringing it mainstream. So we have to see ourselves as being able to take advantage of that mainstream message. Does that make sense to everyone, or am I being too obtuse?
Being too obtuse. What do you mean by church or religion? His frame, Lindsay's frame. What do you mean by that?
Lindsay is talking about a difference in philosophies, and we're talking about it as a difference in genetic, biological, and group evolutionary strategies.
Yes.
And we're saying it's a natural consequence of inclusion in opportunity as the wealth of a society increases. And there's nothing particularly odd about going through this process as we enfranchise the others. It's an adaptive process. The thing
Except
is
how much we're letting them steal.
what?
Except how much we're letting them
Well, I
steal
mean, this is
from
the
us.
problem is sometimes you fail to adapt. Right. And so be taking the bait of the Marxism is failing to adapt. Well, the ancient world failed to adapt. And so it ended up with the Dark Ages. Well, we don't want to end up with the Dark Ages. So the difference here is that is subtle, but it's enough to say he can't legislate against what he's talking about, but we can legislate against what we're talking about. And that's the primary difference. And so we have a means of decidability for permanently outlawing not just what is Marxist and woke, but that entire program throughout in any programs that come afterwards. Sort of, our Constitution's attempt to prevent the church and state from gaining previous power. right? That's the American Constitution. It's trying to make sure the middle class has freedom to be not captured and parasited upon by the church and the state. Well, that's great, but it doesn't defeat the means by which church and state can attempt to undermine the productive classes. And so we've got the science to do that next incremental increase. I'm sure someday after us, sometime in the future, 200 years from now, the effeminate minds will try to, if there's any left, can try to. I'm sorry, I was just want to be sarcastic there. Will try to invent some new cult that creates a social construction of denial of reality. Who just moved around there? That was very disturbing.
I raised my hand and it just shifted my thing around.
Oh, okay, that's what it does. If I do this, does that happen?
Apparently not, but there's like a recognized hand gesture thing.
Yeah, it does recognize him.
That's cute. I haven't tried that yet.
Because you instantaneously turned into Tyler, and that was very disturbing.
I guess whoever raises our hand gets to be on the upper left-hand corner or something.
We need to pull a prank next week, and like I'll dress as you and grow my beard a little bit and come in your office, and you can come to my office, and we'll just act normal. Fuck with Curt.
I think Jacob.
I think Brandon have to do something about
me.
the eyebrows to. He could grow the beard, but you have to do something about the eyebrows to masquerade as Francis.
You can always like
this is how you know you love somebody.
Pencil
You can't help but tease them. It's just awesome. Anyway, so did I make my point there? Is it?
Don't
It's
want to get kicked
Lindsay,
off of Twitter.
What?
Lindsay's a bridge to us.
Lindsay's a bridge to
anyone who's doing good work is a bridge to us.
right. Exactly. Our real problem is that fine line of it. This is what's true, but people are just following their instincts. Now, of course, you talk to my friends in the counseling industry. I haven't really talked about this with. Well, he's not really that kind of counselor. Noah's not that kind of guy. But if you talk to people who are psychologists and that kind of thing, they'll say, no, actually, these people are fucking evil.
Nice.
Right, who?
That's good.
That makes sense. They'll tell you, no, they're because you get when you do that, when you could ask them. I just did this with a random psychologist I bumped into in a parking lot the other day. Because he was trying to get his car towed and the tow truck was blocking my car. So I started up a conversation with him and I asked him a series of questions because I've got a victim, right? He's a captured audience. So I asked him a couple questions and it's like the minute you touch on it, I get the eye roll, which is like this. No, there are really evil people in the world, right? And there's a lot of them. So I take this is true. This is, of course, Martin's perspective. I take that, but it doesn't help us because what happens is people use the normalcy bias and they think we're accusing them of being evil. So the best answer is to take the position we have, which is people don't have the agency without either having the innate bias like all of us do, or life experience or training. And even then, it's very hard for life experience and training to overcome an innate bias because we select for the kind of reinforcement that we already agree with. So our job should be as judicial to say, this is what's causing this. This is theft. This is not. But it's our job to outlaw the bad behavior. This is the neutral position, the judicial position. Even though it hurts me to say, yeah, they're fucking evil, intrinsically evil.
They're just following their own instincts and thinking they're doing good.
Right.
I bet if you interview the serial murderers, right, they think they're doing some kind of good.
You can't tell because so many of them are because there's
That's psychotic.
There's so many of them are psychopaths that you have no idea what they really think when they tell you. Some of them will tell you, I'm just a bad person. I was born bad and I've been this way. And they've been in jail long enough that, you know, they just don't fucking care. They just come to terms with it. It's just stating a truth. And others will just lie their way out of everything. And they're the ones that are scary. The ones that says I was born bad, and if I went out again, I would kill people again. Those people are least comprehensible, right? But it's the ones that they interview, and there's supposed to be 100 or 200 of these out on YouTube somewhere, because I've seen a whole bunch of them. And they said that, well, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I was falsely accused, whatever. They have their grasp of reality is just bizarre. Even if you can't even tell if they believe what they're saying or not.
Yeah, even when I say those people are evil, I usually mean that they are sort of possessed by evil, that they've been trained and indoctrinated into it and then rewarded for acting on it.
It's
Average isn't robust enough. Just regular isn't robust enough. That's what we're offering people. Is the next jump in social science. You're not a human unless you understand social science. You're a social thing that cooperates with others in order to build things up. If you can't do what we're offering, you're not human.
Well, and then
Just
that begs the
the
question.
Homo sapien, the ape.
It begs the question: do we have some kind of relationship or responsibility to guide the non-humans, the herd?
Well, that's something that I thought was beautiful that Maurice said the other day. He says, I'm beginning to understand what you mean by noblesse oblige.
Mhm.
And what some of us feel as a responsibility, and some of us feel a defensive response. Like the angry right is right. Right? They're not wrong. They may be doing the wrong thing to fix it, but they're not wrong. Right? The libertarians aren't wrong. They're doing the wrong thing to fix it, but they're not wrong. Right? So to some degree, the angry left, the underclass left, I'm not talking about the virtue signaling posturing priesthood, but the underclass left, the people who are being left behind, they're not wrong. They're just doing the wrong thing about it. Right?
Everyone has legitimate grievances.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're not in a bad position, but the bad position is really caused by the feminine left and the ability of white women to be seduced into defection.
So the reason I raised my hand is we do have a few topics in the staff notes. I think both
You trying to
myself
get
and
me to
Tyler
shut
put
up,
them in.
Francis?
I'm trying to steer. I'm trying to.
It feels
do
like you're
what
trying to get me to shut
what you
up
asked me
about
to
this
do, which
topic.
is herding cats. And then after we go through the regular, scheduled programming, then we can talk all we want.
Yes, sir. Jesus. You tell where this guy learned his business skills.
Can you make me co-host?
What?
Can you make me co-host so I can share the screen?
I don't know now. What I want, I can put a muzzle on. I'm not doing a ball gag because that's like perverted. But if I can do a muzzle,
You probably have the power to mute people. All the power.
share screen. Where's that multiple? There you go. I feel like I didn't make my point. Did I make my point?
Which one?
Yeah. It was good though.
That point, the one right here.
Is Zoom going to pick up on that hand signal?
I think it's what moves you to the end of the line.
Yeah, I think we had some good points. We'll come back to it too.
Yeah, I'm sure Re.ai captured it all, which is awesome. So I think
It was
this topic.
uninclusive.
What do you say, Luke?
Oh, read.ai, it'll call that uninclusive.
Yeah, uninclusive. More like uninstall.
Oh no! What Re.ai will do is for that span, it'll probably rate the engagement scores.
Oh, well.
Anyhow, I think that this top one, report on progress of work, I think, Curt, that's something you mentioned, what you do in the next staff meeting. And then Tyler, did you add these?
Let's see here. I don't know that I don't think I added the fundraising, but I do have some ideas for that. We can talk about briefly, you know. So obviously we have like the donor page on the website. Obviously, Curt, y'all already include those on the YouTube videos. So there is some links to that. I'm thinking about occasionally making posts like that on some of our streams, like on the Telegram, on the Facebook, on the Twitter, every now and then be like, hey, if you want to support us, but you don't have the time, here's another way. Another part of that is, you know, maybe at the end of some of these videos when we post them, maybe we do like a thanks to our donors or something. If they don't want to be anonymous, I don't know how that works, but just some way to reciprocate their, you know, to say, hey, we think, you know, so.
Yeah, one thing I'll give you a tip is that whenever you're trying to raise, because the truth is that we get enough money to cover costs today, and that's heavily by Brad, by the way. But when you want to raise money, I usually raise money. I only ask for money when we need to do something.
Particular, yeah.
Right. And people generally will fund that. Right. Because they know what it's
particular use.
So if you ask money for a specific use, that generally gets more attention.
Yeah, we can do like Kickstarter projects or something like to that effect when we have
you just have to say it in the
yeah.
You put it out every 4 or 5 days, right? And you say we're trying to raise money to pay for blah 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 blah. Please donate one time or recurring to this at this location.
I will say that the finance thing hasn't been something I push for a lot because I'm really the one pushing for, hey, we're motivated, we're working on our own, we're driven by other things. This is a discussion we've had, but I know different things have come up, like, you know, like the road show and stuff like that. So I'm okay with that. Yeah, I won't be posting until we have a particular need. So we'll just address that as it comes, and that sounds good.
I think the
road show is actually the easiest thing to put because it's self-funding. Because all you do is you set up a time and a place, and you say, well, you know, tickets are this much, and we can only have this many people. The difference is that you can't touch the money until you've hit your fill, because you have to be able to refund it.
Yeah.
Whereas regular institute donations, they're not refundable.
Well, we do need to have a float, right? So for roadshow, for example, in order to rent a venue, that's upfront cost. Versus you can, like, are you supposed that we sell the tickets before we book the venue?
Well, you can sell the tickets before you book the venue. That's not a problem.
Okay.
All right. Last time we just put it on a credit card. It wasn't that much. It was $300.
Only other fundraising thing, you know, I talked about like t-shirts. We obviously got the business cards going, you know, Curt, Brad working on a pamphlet, so there's some good stuff happening there. I guess the merch is a little bit different than the business cards and the pamphlet, but I may continue to kind of pitch some t-shirt designs or stuff like that to see if there's any interest, but not a huge deal.
Please do.
I'd like to vertically integrate anyone we're doing merchandise with. I mean, they should be our people we're buying merchandise from.
Okay.
Shirts, patches, whatever people are building shouldn't be outsourced to anyone. Okay.
We'll definitely post in the larger NLA team and so forth. Just say, hey, does anyone do this or know someone that does this or have any existing trust relationships? So that's a good idea.
Oh, if you remind me, there's a branding document. We have a institute branding document.
Good. I'd love to see it.
I did fix the Militum logo.
Did you
but I didn't fix the comma yet. I'll fix the goddamn comma. All right, fine.
Bunch of grammar Nazis in here.
Be that way.
Gabriel, you have some background noise, but
some missiles firing off.
I don't know what it is. I have my earphones on.
I joked with someone. I was on a call with someone, and there was like something exploded in the background, and they're like, "Oh, my neighbors have fireworks," and I was like, That'd be different if I was talking to Turbo and that happened. I'd be more concerned. Anyway, so yeah, that covers the fundraising stuff. I did add the marketing point. That's so I did review that RFP. Even though, you know, we probably still could benefit from outsourcing that to an extent. I think the responsibilities I saw on there, that's all things that I'm kind of already involved with and want to continue to be involved with. So if nothing else, I can help maybe bridge the gap with our contractor and work together. But a big part of that, as you see, I wrote down like this idea of like simplification, translation, disambiguation. We've had some talks in our chats recently just about certain terminology. As I've reached out to friends that I've known and just done like kind of person to person outreach and so forth, I've run into similar kind of challenges, just like when I came across the work. You know, some things were tough, which a lot of that, like Turbo and people have said, it's just about educating and just takes time, and that's okay. But I think there is a little bit of room always to draw with crayons for some of the people, at least to lure them in. So I'm continuing to kind of work on that element to kind of, you know, what's the most effective sales pitch? What's the most effective words that might resonate with different groups like Christians and others maybe. So just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, that's good there. Last thing I wrote down, talking about internal engagement and development. Just for people that are already in the group, how can we, obviously we have our chats and we're always talking and we're always posting and you know, that's happening naturally. But I heard about this idea of the King of the Hill games y'all used to do from a couple of people. And I thought that sounded really cool. Like some idea of like maybe a weekly topic or something challenge that we do to kind of have some structured, regular engagement could be cool, both internal and external. So just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Well, that's not what it meant. It meant posting something controversial just to get engagement and see what people really think when they get angry.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of both, or we could separate the efforts. Like we could definitely go start fires on social media, but I mean, it sounds like that's probably not our move right now. We're trying to kind of clean up a little bit, but this is just mostly about the internal engagement. How can we just, a little bit more structured engagement is the idea maybe.
It's actually quite a bit harder to do those things than you'd think. But they do get a lot of people to participate. What you really are trying to do is you're trying to pick a position where it can be interpreted either way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you get outrageous reaction both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're trying to do is provoke the response, because then the people fight it out, and you've basically thrown the, you know, T-bone in front of the dogs, so to speak, so they can fight. It's quite interesting. The problem is it's also where most of the negativity came from for all reasons.
Right. Yeah, that's why I think maybe more internally focused. Maybe obviously we have, again, internal, we have a little bit more trust and just, you know, friendliness and so forth and maybe it doesn't even have to be that controversial of a topic. It could just be a topic, just, hey, you know, just as an act of consensus building, we just take whatever, you know, and just kind of get some gauge from everybody, kind of try to get on the same page throughout it. I don't know, just something like that.
That's the right answer.
Gives us the opportunity to get our guys in there, and then we can give the disambiguated explanation.
Yeah. And again, part of it could be a public forum out there to attract new people, and part of it could be almost like, you know, like if we were to imagine this is like an institute and we had like a class, and it's just like an exercise for the class, like it's just an exercise for our guys, you know, for all of us to build.
Plus one on that, because I know some folks in this community, they're more autodidact and just kind of learned it all by themselves. I'm more of a like structured kind of guy, and I see a lot of the learning and training that's going on. It seems to be more like the ancient Greek forum type of learning,
right?
And maybe I like to have a more structured learning, and it's just looking at my own understanding of the science. I see bits and pieces. I'm not sure if I can form it into a system more, and more importantly, I don't know how much I actually get it.
Yeah. If you go through the methodology videos, have you gone through those, Francis?
Is it on your YouTube?
The problem is that people seem to not Some people get it from there and some people don't.
Right.
And of course, we need to produce them. I think that the general problem is that the reason it takes so much exposure is that these arcs put a burden on working memory.
Mhm.
The relationships put a heavy burden on working memory. And so that's why repetition is so important, and it's why all this contextual repetition matters. So what we could do is we could go through the fundamentals, the foundations, and we could try to find ways of repeating them. But I've
We should run a class.
What?
We should run a class with like 2 of our guys who have been here for a while but want to learn, and then I don't know, 10 people who are buying it, 6 people who are buying it.
Right. And
I like that.
it's way harder. Because in many things, let's take calculus, for example, because I remember learning calculus. Now, if you're a programmer, calculus comes easier, but if you learn calculus before programming, it's a different thing. It's all function, right? So I remember learning calculus, and you have to get step by step. It's the same thing with analysis, right? You have to learn it step by step, and you build on things. The problem here is everything's fucking related.
Where do you start? Yeah.
It's like if I come at it from this way,
Anywhere.
this understanding.
Exactly.
This way.
And we can try different angles. That's why I wrote pathways there in the description, because I'm kind of thinking about that. Like, what could be some, obviously you could enter at any point and start to make connections, build out, but like maybe we have here's some good starter points that we found, and here's some simple kind of hooks, and you can start to maybe build out from here and try to linearize it a little bit. But obviously, like you said, it's going to be a network, a node, a complex picture at the end of the day. So
Well, I've done that. There's a document somewhere up there with the course outline, like what to put in it.
yeah, I saw those videos were good. The different series that you did on YouTube, I started to check out some of those, and I liked them. Like it had more of that course format, which I think was good for me.
The expert who's best in each field, least wrong, who is least wrong, and we just patronize them.
Yeah.
You fix the one hole in your work. You already have all the eyes. You already teach the work, and then the work provides an inroad to our work because it's commensurate across disciplines. You can jump from one to another.
Yes.
So can I tell you what I learned by doing that? What I learned is that my tendency is to build from the bottom up, because that's how I think, right? First principles. That's a long fucking journey to relevance for people,
Isn't it?
What's the short journey is to work from either the grammars up, or to work from the reciprocity out. Most people that I found grasp reciprocity out, and then you can work down into the grammars, and then down in the first principles, then up from the ethics into the behaviors. So there's different ways of approaching the problem, and I've tried all of them. And
the shortest path is to work from relevance back.
correct.
I start from where someone's being slighted by the systems currently. Like,
Yes.
you have a problem.
This is why it's important to have somebody in their context presenting the material to them from within.
Right, because otherwise it's too much. Not only is each topic a burden on working memory, but the accumulation of each topic on top of the other is another burden. At some point, they get the ternary logic.
Yeah, we'll be able to build the framework for the curriculum, and we'll be able to train teachers. We're never going to be able to provide all the teachers.
Right.
Yep.
I think, okay, so I think in conclusion, we're talking about in context, reach out to those who needs correction and provide them with the correction that's needed from the NLI perspective. But then that should lead them to the grammar and reciprocity. But that gets me to think that if those are the incoming funnel in a sense, then there's a foundation set of skills that you have that you absolutely have to possess in order to learn the higher level material all the way. Let's say try functionalism at the top, right? Even the ternary logic that's at the top. Then maybe we start with E prime grammar, start with understanding the 5 aspects of reciprocity and the truth test. Those are the foundations, and you build up from there.
What's the end goal in this mechanism of understanding? What are you trying to produce?
Luke's on the right track.
Somebody that can produce law, or somebody that can reciprocate?
Well, I'm just looking at
let me answer. Let me get it.
Two, my lord.
Here's what I figured out, right? Is you need that, what we call the posters or the pamphlet or the outline, which is the basis of the principles. Everybody's going to have a different entry point.
Yeah.
And so you have to work from the entry point that they understand, and which is what Luke meant by relevance.
Yep.
So we can create it as a usual college level discipline, right? A STEM level discipline, which is what I set out to do by starting with the methods, right? Right. Oh, and that's one thing. That's teaching. There's a difference between teaching and tutoring. And when you're talking about a tutor, you're trying to say, I'm trying to work with you through your, what did you call it? Axis of relevance. And my what I observe from people coming into this is they find something that's relevant, and they build on what's relevant to them. Because I mean, you guys that are newer, there's a lot of shit here, right? I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. We touch every fucking discipline.
Yeah. I don't feel expected to know everything, and I don't feel like I need that. I mean, that's why we're here working together, because like there is some room for specialization, like, and we can kind of work together.
Right.
So what becomes important then is determining or defining or describing a minimum required set of skills that need to be in place, right? And what is that to function as a cooperative individual within our society? And that's what we should be aimed at teaching people, right? And so what is that? They need to be able
that's the mass market view, Luke.
Right. I get that. That's what I'm asking for. What are we pointing?
Well, no, and I'm trying to leap on what you're saying,
right?
Which is that's a mass market view. There's another view that's an activist view. There's another view that's a teacher's view. Another view that's a judge's view. So we have these different entry points, right? And so we need to be able to get into the work at an entry point that's relevant to the individual. So if I was to go to what?
Well, we have entry points, and we also kind of have like a destination, like an ideal. Here's a place you could arrive, like an adjusted judge or an adjusted just citizen, or certain endpoints as well, potentially.
I'm pretty. If you know the first principles, the ternary logic, the first principles, the grammars, demonstrated interest, reciprocity, testimony, and lying and crime, right? You've got the basics of what everyone needs to know. A lot of what I do is I need to build up the construction of that. So I need to know what a neural bouton, the bouton that crosses a synapse does, right? But does everybody have to need to know that?
Nope.
Absolutely not. If you want to get into you probably want to know sex difference and cognitive bias. That's the new one we've added, right? Because that's really what explains the origin of all these differences. But beyond that, that's the list. that most people need to understand. So I'm gonna go back to start leaping off of Luke's point. Now, Luke has a position because he's the guy that thinks mostly in the mass market. And I think mostly in the judicial, right, in the political. So when I look at this, I say, okay, well, there's these posters. The posters are basically the things I just listed. What are the things you need to understand? If you understand those posters, you understand all there is to know that you need to know.
Hell yeah. Very good.
Right. So the difference is we should tell people, right? That's part of our thing, is what's interesting to you. Is group evolutionary strategy interesting to you? Well, that should be to some people. How many people are as interested in for example, why does the brain work in triangles? I mean, how many people need to fucking understand that? Nobody needs to understand that. Otherwise, go down to, why does the universe have 3 visible dimensions? Well, because you can't construct a 4th one without destroying one of the previous 2. So I mean, how many people need to understand that? They don't need to know that. I need to have that in there so I can defend against other guys like me.
Yep.
I think what you mean,
Layers.
there's a basis of how the science is constructed, but we should separate that from the views to each of the applications. So we're talking about, like, really how I kind of think about it is we have the science itself, which is scientific research, and then we're at this point we're talking about applied science. You don't need to quite understand how, to give you an analogy, you don't quite have to understand how combustion and the chemistry around what do you call them, around how petroleum work and so on, to understand how a car will run, how to drive a car.
Yep.
But it does matter that you know that someone knows those things.
Yes.
And trust them.
You don't have to know them. Right? You just have to know that those things are known.
Yep.
And you have
but then, because then we're talking about layers of knowledge. But I think what you're alluding as that there is a 4th tier, which is someone who does know the entirety. And right now, I think it's just you, Curt.
I think that, but beside Brandon, beside Martin and I have very minor disagreements on how to disambiguate a term. He knows a lot of this stuff. Despite that Brad is less articulate than, say, Brandon or Luke, he does know most of it. I always get floored when Jacob writes something and I'm like, fuck, that was genius. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, it's absolutely flawless. Right? And then, I mean, if you look at Luke knows this stuff too. So we all have different interests that drive us. But it's kind of surprising me. I mean, I go stuff like this. Brandon's always jumping the fucking ahead of me. Right. He's always jumping ahead of my arc narrative. It's his way of telling me to shut up. And jumps ahead of the narrative. But Brandon knows most of it. If you say who knows all of it, well, it's probably me, yeah. But I'm still constantly blown away by the amount of knowledge this team has. Like, Brad said something to me last week. I can't even remember what it was. I was like, I can't believe you just made that connection correctly. Right?
Is it correct to say that we need this core group, let's call it analyze scientists, right, to be able to know the material well enough to be able to produce the applications for each one of these other views, whether it's the mass market, the teachers, or the judges? I see teachers as the next layer, the folks who can communicate to the mass market and teach this stuff, but they may not understand thoroughly every aspect of the science.
Yep.
I would say that, yeah, that's the way to frame it is need to understand from the method on up. You do not need to understand the sciences that gave us the method.
Yeah,
You only need to know from your behavior out.
Yep.
Yes.
You only need to know anything from your behavior out to the rest of, and it's only 5 criteria. It's not, there's not a hard shift for people. We want to use the newfound rules in decorum to set the institute apart as the top of an escalation chain, and
Yes.
then be very stingy with who we give any attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're solving the problem. It's like, you want us to give you billions of dollars in future revenue and profits for nothing, for free, and you can just yell at us for our attention? No.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think it's very key, like you're kind of spelling out here, Francis, to be able to kind of distinguish some of these key thresholds between some of these key layers, and also some of this specialization that happens within each layer. It's something I've been thinking a lot about. I think these are some of the good distinctions, and this builds on what Luke's document that he shared with me a while ago about, like, what was it? It was scientists, judges, and priests, I believe, was the distinction. That's kind of where some of the distinctions that are starting to emerge potentially, but it's interesting.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like I work with Brandon on this stuff, and it's amazing to me how deep his knowledge is, and he's only recently started publishing it on Twitter. Right, so I don't know. Brandon said, he said I've understood since 2019 or something like that, right? Right. Luke's got a very deep understanding. He's trying to, and what's best about his position, he's trying to solve something. You know, he's trying to solve a very specific problem. And it's very important. So, I mean, we all have our little biases, right? I'd rather work on just the logic.
Mm.
Right? But who the fuck is interested in that besides me?
I would rather work on just the logic, just to be clear.
There you go.
This is not where the needs are. That would be my preference, but that's not where the needs are. So
That's what
I'm kind of a guy
exactly
who's
the answer.
look. I'm kind of a guy who's after learning for learning's sake. I just want to.
Right.
I just want to understand this stuff.
Yeah.
and that's fantastic, but we can't build the system around that.
I don't.
I like the idea of building it from relevance.
Yeah.
It might, you know.
When I would suggest, just as a nitpick in this conversation, we're not correcting people anymore. We're solving their problems. We're providing solutions. We're not correcting. We just have an answer they haven't landed on yet. So.
Oh, excellent. So you're saying reframe?
Yes.
We each of us need to reframe that in our minds. That is, we're providing a solution. That is the service we provide. We're not correcting people. We're not running around going, "You're wrong." We're saying, "Oh, that's a problem. We recognize that's a problem. Here's the
So
answer."
that is how we should. You're saying I gotta.
That's how I show up at every activist meeting. It's like,
Yes.
I'm not one of you. I know everything that you don't know. I can solve any problem that anyone here has at any time.
He's not
You
saying that
have
flippantly.
my time for
That's
the
what this
next hour.
provides.
No, it's good. It's good. I just, for some reason in my mind, I imagine him showing up at like a parent teacher conference and just like stealing the mic and just putting everybody in their place, which I love.
Well,
but
he
it's
can
also
do
funny
it.
at the
Is
same
the
time.
thing.
Exactly.
He actually can.
Exactly.
You talked about layers of people that we've moved through in the past, right? The radicals, the guys that you identified earlier, they were the identifiers of the problem, right? And what were we working on at the time? We were working on measurements and how to measure the problem. So we're the perfect fit for that audience, right? Now on the social media space, stuff like that, all we're doing is we're engaging with the complainers about the problem, and we provide answers to those complaints, right? But the next move is to engage with the solvers of the problems, and to them we have to provide solutions.
Yes.
Beautiful.
That's the state we need to put ourselves in, and that's the engagement we need to approach as the solution providers to the problem solvers, not the complainers, not the identifiers, but the problem solvers. And that's what we have to graduate into engaging with.
I like that. That's brilliant. You really are good for stuff when you put your mind to it.
What do they call them? ISP, infrastructure solution providers, IT solution providers.
That's why I keep pushing us all to think about the product that we offer as solutions. That's what we do. We provide solutions. That's our, everything else is gravy, right? Like the fundraising we do and all that kind of stuff. It's great. It gets us in front of people, but our offer is solutions.
Yes, that's the core product. The core.
So
effort.
then I think in terms of, well, maybe that doesn't have to necessarily be one-to-end priority order. I'm just thinking about where we're spending our time on as an institute staff, right? Curt, I know that we had a discussion before that the think of this as a software product. The MVP that we have to offer right now, I think we're structured around the constitution first, and then the website followed by the book. There's somewhere in there we need to have what Luke just talked about, which is the applied science, the solutions for each one of these groups.
Right,
Now,
I know,
it may not have to.
and I know you're very results oriented. And that's because your deliverables are on a certain time horizon.
That's the other question I want to ask is, Tyler and I in our one-on-one were talking about this yesterday. What is our time horizon? I'm thinking it's probably not the next 6 months, maybe not the next year, but it's not the next 50 years either. There is a window that we have to deliver this product.
Next couple of years. And here's what I'm concerned about. I've got enough of people here to make a management team. I want to make this thing work. If this thing works, we get 3, 4 more, 5 in here, we're ready. We got enough people to be a movement. So that's my primary concern. After that, my next concern is producing it. What comes out of this team in these meetings is phenomenal. Already. I mean, just the organization you've added, just the excitement and the enthusiasm and the focus on marketing Tyler's added. Just the fact that Jacob, well, he hardly says anything because he's a very nice Canadian. He doesn't like to interrupt me.
His presence, his aura is enough.
Yes. Well, you know, I know in the back of my mind, if I ask this guy, can you solve this problem? It will get fucking solved. So that's what I'm concerned about is, can we be enough on the same page? I can't see Gabriel, so I can't, because the screen takes up too much. So I can't make fun of Gabriel somehow from here.
Yo, I'm here. I just unmuted myself. So
All right. So like, I know already that you will correctly answer a problem just like Martin will. Right? These are big deals to me. Because, you know, I started out this by my fucking self. And I said, I need at least 12 guys. Because 12 guys can create 100 guys. Right? We're getting there. Thank you, Martin, for all the work you've done in making this happen.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
We had Bill, but Bill couldn't hack it. We got Martin. Martin's the opposite end. Bill didn't want to be tough enough. Martin like brings out the chains and the brass knuckles.
Skull piles.
What?
I said skull piles.
And skull piles, right? So we have that was more, so we seem to have done better. But so to me, I'm interested in that. Because, and so after that, what I'm interested in is does the website contain enough information for us to go to market? By go to market, I mean, try to help people try to raise money, right? Try to have influence.
Yep. And
then after that, I'm worried about, is the Constitution good enough that this group can beat the shit out of it for 30, 60, 90 days so that we can take that thing to a publisher. They'll fix my horrendous use of 35 to 50 word sentences. And we will end up with something that is proof positive we understand the problem better than anyone living.
Oh yeah.
Right. Those are my 3 things, right? I want the team, I want the plan, which is the website. I use websites as a plan, and I want the content. We have those 3 things, we will win. So it's just, to me, to answer Francis' question, is there is what I think it's more important, Francis, is always be moving forward.
Yes.
Right. Then is to try to get to the end.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I'm very Napoleonic in that sense, but that's how I build big companies.
Yes.
All right. So the problem is, when I say this, I'm trying to say that to you to make you feel comfortable with while not taking away the wonderful contribution you add, which is trying to drive stuff to conclusion.
No, I get it.
You get it. Okay.
Yes.
God forbid I offend y'all.
No, I think this
Really
this stuff takes time, and I totally get it. And I've worked with enough software development engineers to know that build this stuff takes time. I just can't help but to ask the one question.
Yeah, we should. I mean, like rough
could-
No, it's
timelines are always
good.
good.
I just
We
don't
could
want you to
build
be
a
mad
s-
at me
we could
when I
build a
say
suite.
it doesn't. If I say it, and I can't do that yet.
We could build a suite of operations where
Yes.
all it takes is to fund those operations to bring them into fruition and then ask people to fund it.
Right.
And that would speed everything up. Hey, we need these experts to do these particular things in these particular ways. We don't have the manpower, the credentials, or the hours to do it. But other people do. And it's just
Well, and you know, for example, you know, we get that constitution done. We go to the Federalist Society and we ask that group, we write it as a paper. We ask that group to criticize it. Do you realize what's going to come out of that shit? It's going to be unfucking believable. Right? Right. So I know working with Brandon, he sees the path to successful activism that we've got to capture. The problem is we started working on that and realized we need to make sure we understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on now. Then
Yep.
we'll go back and fix that. Right? Because all we have to do is finish this first index to the core topics, right? And then we can go back to work on the front page.
we need to be able to turn people back to the law, the Constitution, for proof positive that we're heading in that direction. So all I want to ensure activism. Meaning if you act lawfully on behalf of us, on behalf of a better future, we'll ensure your actions. Ensure them.
Right?
We'll come to defend you. Because you're
Oh, yeah.
correct. And then the moral high ground and so on.
When it positions us to where we're not gift seeking, we're trading. We're offering value in exchange for value.
Yes, right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, be honest with you, it's going to turn into revenue generation. But
Right, absolutely.
I don't want to leave that out there because it tends to be just an unpleasant distraction. But we're going to get paid for this. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're providing solutions. I just want to
Yep.
keep beating that horse till it's in everybody's head.
Yes. I think I correctly gauged Luke on the tri-functional as being between the market and the culture. You understand the mass, you understand the culture, you understand the product, and you also understand that it is a product and that we should keep that in mind. Very good.
All right, gentlemen, I need to hit the road.
Awesome.
Thank you, Francis. Love you, man.
Thanks for your
Thanks,
time today.
Francis.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Now I can see everybody again. Yay! Cheerful faces. Did we lose somebody else?
No, just Francis.
Oh,
So how has everyone perceived this discussion?
very good.
Yeah, what comes to mind is I do think that there is some room for very specific delegation. I just think personally, I work best with very specific tasks.
Yes.
So like if you give me 12 terms, I could have that done in a week, for example, very explicit priorities. I'm not sure about other guys, but
Yeah, we'll work together on the glossary project in that
Most
capacity.
people do.
Yeah.
Most people do. The thing is, you just volunteered. I don't like to volunteer people. If you
Yeah,
say
no,
to me, I'll do
100%
12
I
things, then that's
volunteer
great.
for that.
If
I volunteer nobody.
I volunteer somebody and you can't do it, that means I'm a bad person. Right? And you failed, right? But if you say I want to do this and it's your volition, there's no stress internally.
That's what we run on. You're not, if you were paying someone in an organization, then you have the right to ask them to do things. But we run on that spirit. So yes, it kind of involves us, putting ourselves out there, which is perfect.
Gabriel, how come you managed to look like a fucking movie star at an interview when we're just on a fucking bullshit meeting?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just like
I'm giving you shit.
naturally.
I'm giving you shit because you're just sitting there all comfortable like this. It's like fucking Clint Eastwood sitting there being mad.
He's just jealous of your hair.
He's
We're
like,
all-
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's my
looking
hair.
good. I'm calm. I'm in control. Yeah, I'm hot. Yeah, I don't know. I just
Every organ needs a pretty face. We need a front man.
Yeah, sure.
I was surprised the army didn't ask you to shave.
Me?
Yeah. You don't have
Shave
to
my
do that.
face or
Yes.
no.
Where else would they ask you to
Absolutely
shave? They do things weird
No.
over there.
Maybe
Okay.
my head. I don't know.
Good,
funny.
we need to work on Rob, and the communication is a real problem. Mostly because I have to get quite a bit of
What type of communication do you mean?
just
You
time.
mean like
it's
he's in a
time.
different time zone?
Yeah,
He's an Australian.
and he's stepping up to Brandon Froze. He's stepping up to produce the content, and he can actually do it. So he's wanted to.
He used to do it under a moniker Western Renaissance.
Yes, he did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't
I didn't.
recognize
I
the
thought
voice?
that was. I thought that was. What's his name? David. No. Am I, you're. I'm going to assume you're right. All right.
The Danielle did intrude victorious and had to stop due to family situation.
Yeah,
Western
Victoria.
Renaissance
That's what
is
I'm
wrong.
confusing it with. I thought it was In Truth Victorious that did that. That was Rob.
I'll find the channel.
Yep.
It's actually his channel through which I found you.
Okay, so Rob is extremely enthusiastic about participation. My whole thing is if somebody needs a lot of attention, then they're a risk to my time. And so I think that I've misunderstood who he was looking for. So we need to try to get him involved in this somehow. So if I don't know if anybody can talk with him and see how that can work.
I know I
Because-
haven't talked to him yet. He's one of the few I haven't yet. I can reach out.
So the problem is it's like 14 hours difference or something like that. So it's 1 in the morning over there right now, or 2 in the morning.
Here, that's his old channel.
Huh?
That's his old channel.
Okay, so it is his.
Yes.
So he's quite talented, really. So, but I'd like to
Yeah,
see.
he even has some chats with you
Yes.
from just over a year ago, actually.
I can't believe I confused those two fucking people. Yeah, well, it's part of it. All right. I
That
can't-
happens as the quality improves across the group. So.
Well, I mean, who's the guy that really, we had a guy earlier too that got mad at me over over the Trump thing. Steve Pender era. So we lost him, we lost Bill.
There's an opportunity to reestablish those bridges. I think a lot of those guys are still adjacent enough and still willing enough if we address what some of their concerns are.
Well, I mean, it's reasonable for them. If I have to go off and go figure out the Christians and go figure out the hard right and science them, and that I've got to do that by King of the Hill games that are pretty nasty, right? It's if I've got to go understand the hard right, which is the fascists.
You shouldn't have to do that. Like, you anchor us enough and you give us you've created enough for us to do it. And this is kind of where we talk about like the delegations and what people like myself.
I'm agreeing.
Do, right?
I'm just making, let me finish my point is
Well,
that
I am hard right, and my entire following is hard right.
right, exactly. so me to make my point here is that I understand why the more libertarian people would be offended by the work I did. Right? I mean, that's what's alienating is the King of the Hill games. But King of the Hill games are how we do the research. That's how we get demonstrated behavior instead of reported behavior. And so, it's understandable why they wouldn't like that. So I get it. It's not a problem for me. But the thing is that if we're switching now and we have out of that into activism, then maybe it's a time for them for rapprochement. I mean, I know that's happened to other people because they've been coming back.
Yeah, those are the type of interfacing and the conversations I've been having. Like some of those guys that are harder right, like how can I kind of get them to care about the optics and saying things in a scientific and strategic way? Like the Christians, how can we get them to kind of overcome some of their boundaries or differences, or
it's a great thing. Is that here's how I approach this: is that we have to accept that all the disenfranchised, no matter where they are, have legitimate complaints against the cathedral. Right. And so that's got to be our approach. And our job is to solve the cathedral complex problem for everybody. Right now, I might have my preferences. Everybody has their own. I'd love to live in a purely ethnocentric state with the same high trust I grew up in. Right. But that doesn't mean I need to have that. It means I need to not have what they're trying to do to us.
Yep.
Right. I don't. There are plenty of Christians who said I would prefer to live in an exclusive Christian state, and but what they really need is not having what's being imposed on us. The same with the fascists. And so I would rather live in a fascist state. What they're really saying is, I don't want to live in what's being imposed on us.
Yeah, via negativa. That's how we'll get everyone together against the same enemy. Yeah.
So that's the approach we should take. And Brandon's been saying. Brandon and I discussed this back. It must have been 19 or 18. I don't know. It was a long time ago. This is where we had to get to, because the only way to unify everybody, because they won't unify. They won't unify on one of their ends, but they'll unify on the fact of defeating the enemy.
Yeah, we have to constantly come back to that via negativa, constantly draw back to our common enemy, or else we will, it always devolves into like the via positiva distinctions and disagreements, and like Francis even said, it's just we only need a certain amount of consensus and about the via negativa. So obviously,
yeah. Well, the thing also is we don't even need to unify on the via positiva. Our objective is, we get the via negativa, federalist system, and then you have the markets to produce the rest. Positiva commons.
All right. All right. So 10. Okay, we did a lot in an hour.
Hell yeah.
All right. I feel like we made good progress. I'm not sure. I don't know. Does everybody sort of figure out where I'm trying to take this? We're all there.
Yep.
Gabriel, you sort of on board with this? You making sense? Anything you disagree with?
Nope.
Even Brandon's skinhead. Brandon's got the skinhead on one side, and Martin's got skinhead clothes on.
I debated whether or not my public persona could take this haircut, and then went for the test.
You got it.
I don't think it makes
So
any
we're
difference.
gonna see.
You're just
when I do it, at least I'll be consistent.
The problem is I have such hair envy for your hair. You have gorgeous fucking hair. It's just not fair to me that you should get all that beautiful hair and you can wear it and you choose not to, and I want it and I can't have it.
We need Marxism for hair. Sees the means.
That's right. We need hair Marxism.
Sees the mean of beauty. Sees the follicles.
All right. Is there anything else everybody's got? Luke, we back on next week?
Yeah, we are. We're back on next week.
Yeah. What are we talking about next week?
I believe next week. Here, let me look at real quick.
We did fire last time, right?
We did biometrics last time, so next week we're talking about hygiene. Or no, next week is biometrics.
Okay. All right.
Before we jump off, I just want to riff off of what Tyler was talking about. Using Christians as the example, just to tie in what I was bringing up earlier. Right? We want to help as many people as possible. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that we get there by throwing a big net at the bottom of the stack. Right? What we want to do is identify who in the Christian community is in the best position to offer their entire community, solve the problems of their community, right? Who is that person? Who are those people? And those are
Exactly.
the people we engage with and provide them solutions.
Exactly.
We don't have to capture an entire domain. We don't have to capture an entire audience. We have to solve the problem that the people in that audience are already, the leaders in that audience are already trying to solve. Right? And through that process, we become valuable to the entire community.
Yeah.
And what we offer becomes valuable to the entire community. And that's what I'm talking about when I say we need to identify the relevance within each community, and we need to offer those points of relevance are solutions.
Yep.
And that's going to be much more effective than trying to talk to the millions of individual
Not our job.
around the planet, right? If we position ourselves and demonstrate to all these audiences that we are solving their problems, we don't have to capture them.
Yep.
They are us.
Hell yeah. I like that.
So, I just wanted to make that connection if it wasn't clear earlier. So
Perfect.
I can't think of any way to spin that to tease you. Other than you might need a clerical collar to say that again.
There you go.
Love you, man.
I'm comfortable in any of those approaches. So I can be the scientist, the judge, or the priest. Just point me in the right direction, or point me where you need me. So
Scientists, judges, and priests.
All right, guys. Anything else? Are we done now? Any reason I can't publish this meeting?
No.
Other than Brandon's hair.
I wasn't gonna say it, but no, we're good. I think it sounds good.
We're gonna.
Post it.
Maybe.
Did you think you were gonna tease this much, Brandon?
Yeah.
Did you think you were gonna get teased this much?
Oh yeah, I was just fighting the urge to do the salute now that he's post it up publicly. So
God.
we wrestle internally too, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
like
right,
it though. I approve.
Gabriel,
hair.
you get a lot out of this. Was this good?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Love you guys. Have a great week.
Alrighty. See y'all.
Yeah.